morning, everyone. Any questions before we start? Any questions regarding yesterday's lectures? No? Everything's good? Okay, good. So for today's lecture, I will switch topic a little bit. I'll talk about the fog and the dew. So that's my personal favorite topic. When we think about the hydrological extremes, right? Very often we think about the rainfall, we think about the flooding, right? So that's of course is important. But in many parts of the global dryland, actually fog and dew play a very important role. We just don't really pay too much attention to them, right? So that's why, in the last 10 years also have been working on this topic. I think it's very interesting. I will talk about some of the results we found and hopefully that's inspire you to think about this kind of a minor component of a hydrological cycle. So most of the work, the picture on the top is from the Namib Desert. So it's in Africa, right in southern tip of Africa. So most of the field research we done is from there. But we did do some modeling, do some remote sensing work, try to upscale the work a little bit. So first of all, why we care about the dry land, right? So here it's not technically a dry land, but the neighboring state, Rajasthan, right, is much drier, right? So when you look at the map, this global map, so all the yellowish color are considered as dry land, right? So globally, dry land account for 40% of the land surface. It's very large presence. So it appears in every continent, right? So except Antarctic. So, but even Antarctic, you have dry valleys, right? So, but all the human habitat regions has a dry land, right? So when you look at India, you will actually see there is actually a big part of the country is considered as a dry land. So when we think about dry land, when we look at the rainfall record over the last several decades, for majority of the dry land globally, you can see there is actually big reduction in precipitation. Right? So because dry land already was limited, if you have less precipitation, that means it's not good for vegetation growth there. Right? So, but also make the non-rainfall water more important, like fog water, dew water. So that's why we need to care about them and study the mechanism for them. So dry land has a lot of people living on them. So globally, about 1/3 of the global population living in dry land, mostly in semi-arid and dry, humid regions. So, but it is more than 2 billion people living in dry land. Right? So, but not only there are large amount of people living in dry land, actually the rate of a population growth in dry land is actually proportionally larger than other parts of the world. So this figure I did almost more than 10 years ago, but essentially that is a population trajectory for dryland countries. So here, dryland country, basically I just define, if one country has a dryland more than 50% of their territory, we consider as a dryland country. So, the black line here, that is the global average. And you can see for most of the big part of dryland countries, their population growth rate, so that is the density, is much higher than global average. And these two countries, they are. You can imagine this is here, India, and this is Pakistan, right? So that actually gave us the idea how population trajectory in global dryland, right? So this one is not particularly promising because we know dryland is actually limited by water resources, by other resources, right? So if you have population growth that big in dryland, that's actually will create a lot of pressure, create a lot of tensions, right? So part because of that, right? We know dryland actually suffer different land issues, mostly like soil erosion, land migration, right? So it has been estimated up to 70% of the dry land are affected by desertification issues. Right? So that's tell us about I guess the status of dry land, but also the importance to think about the water resources in dry land. So I wrote a letter to science many years ago. We talk about you are living in a not extreme end of dry land, right? So we should develop technologies more efficient harvesting rainfall. Right? So because a lot of time when people live in dry land, you actually rely on the groundwater from dry land for a lot of purpose. So we're talking about rainfall should be more efficiently used in this type of system. And also, if you move from a kind of a less dry land to extreme dry land, maybe rainfall is very small now. And so we're talking about then you should actually start thinking about fog and dew, like